This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Show. Today is Thursday, March 30th, opening day, and I am here with Hall of Fame boxing writer and baseball enthusiast, Jack Hirsch. Good morning, Jack. How are you?
Hey, good, Pax. I mean, the opening of this baseball season, it's caught me off guard. I'm following the NCAA men's tournament, in all fairness, a little more than the women's I'm following. And I'm following the NFL free agency, the NBA, the playoff situation, and now the baseball season is amongst us.
It's here.
It caught me off guard. I mean, today's my wedding anniversary, too. I'm supposed to make believe I don't care about sports today, but I do. I do.
Well, thank God.
My mind.
Thankfully, your wife is okay with you taking the first couple hours of the day, because then you have the rest of the day to spend with her.
Well, she's used to it. 38th wedding anniversary. And I'm going to tell you, at our wedding, okay, it was a big sports weekend because it was the Final Four game being played where Georgetown beat St. John's and Villanova beat Memphis that day. But the next day was the first WrestleMania. And all they were asking on the wedding video, who do we think's going to win? You know, the tag team Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, Muhammad Ali, the referee, Billy Martin, the timekeeper. Okay, That was the first WrestleMania. WrestleMania's still going strong, and so is my marriage to my wife, Audrey.
There you go. So, I mean, and like it's your 38th or 39th, because aren't they about to do WrestleMania 39?
Well, you start the 39. It was one day.
All right,
later.
It did start one. There we go. So you start the one. Yeah, because I know next year's the 40th WrestleMania, and with any luck, the Philly sports guy will be a part of it. So, because it is going to be in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. So, but we don't need to talk about WrestleMania yet.
Philadelphia theme. We got the Philadelphia theme going on. I could never wear Philly, shirt. I can never wear an Eagles 76er shirt. I can never bring myself to wear a team's logo outside of my own. I just can't do it. I mean, even in New York, being a Yankee fan, I once was at Shea Stadium where the Mets were playing a game and they were giving out some free caps. I couldn't use it as a part-time thing. I had to give them away.
Hey, I understand. I love it when there's fans like that in the ballpark. When there's fans of opposing teams and they don't want to wear the cap, I just take the cap from them. So, hey, here we go. Straight from Mac himself, who is he'll be back again tomorrow. Happy anniversary, Jack! Everybody's going to start to weigh in here a little bit about that, But here we go. We have baseball season starting, but as you said, there's other things happening in the world of sports. You have the Sacramento Kings, who haven't made the playoffs since like Nixon was in office. I'm lying about that, but really, I mean, it's been 16 years since they have been in the playoffs. They have clinched not only the playoffs, but they've clinched at least a first round home series, and actually likely have home series all the way through the playoffs minus the number one seed.
Yeah, kudos to the Sacramento Kings. The type of year they have their third seed right now. I don't like the NBA's description of their playoff format. 10 teams in reality get into the postseason, and they say, well, the first 6 get in automatically. And then out of the remaining 4, the other two of the other 4 make the playoffs. In reality, when the regular season ends, the playoffs begin. There are 10 teams in the playoffs in reality, but the teams in the play-in tournament, it's basically a one-and-done deal for the most part. It's like one game and you're out, or you're in, or you advance. But in any event, it's nonsense. They're in the postseason. Call it playoffs if you want. I call it postseason. You have an easier path to the championship or the NBA finals or whatever if you're one of the 6 teams and you don't have to be in the play-in tournament. I understand that. But I just don't like this talk. Well, only the first 6 teams make the playoffs. No, 7, 8, 9, and 10 in reality are making the playoffs as well.
Well, I understand where they're saying it's that play-in game, I guess, but it is an extra game. It's obviously it's not the regular season. Can't call it a regular season, so it absolutely is the postseason. And you know what? That's a great segue right into something that's a little bit Philadelphia, because Kyrie was in town yesterday with the Dallas Mavericks, and they are on the outside looking in after this trade in the 11 spot. Any thoughts
I'm
about
going
that?
to tell you, this is hard to believe. The Dallas Mavericks get Kyrie Irving. They haven't gotten better. They haven't even stayed the same. They've gotten worse. They've gotten worse with Kyrie. And I'm not saying it's not an attitude problem with Kyrie since he's come to Dallas. Let's be fair about it. He hasn't shown a negative attitude. He hasn't done anything wrong. He's tried to buy in. But with some guys, it just doesn't work. Like the guy Gazzo said in Rocky, some guys hate. Some guys hate for no reason. You tell Rocky, well, some guys don't have good team chemistry. Some guys don't have good team chemistry for no particular reason. It's not that they're bad guys. It's not that they don't want to buy in. It just doesn't happen. We've discussed this with your favorite player, Russell Westbrook. That a little bit of a problem. Carmelo Anthony, a little bit of a problem. It doesn't mean that they're bad guys. It doesn't mean that they're not great players. It doesn't mean that they're not trying to buy in. It was that way with Will Chamberlain to a degree. They didn't maximize his teams to quite their full potential. That sometimes happens. But with Kyrie and the Mavericks, they have a big decision to make. Either they give him a mega deal at the end of this season, or they're going to have to just move on from him, and they gave up draft capital, they gave up pieces, and they move on from Kyrie. Where are they going to go? They're in a rebuilding mood. And if they stick with Kyrie, are they really going to be much better than they are at any point? Now, if the season ended today, they wouldn't even be in the play-in tournament. The most mediocre of teams get into the play-in format. Dallas wouldn't even be there, and they have a so-called superstar in Luka. And now maybe we have to examine Luka, who at one point, he would get a few votes from some people, tags as the best player in the league at one point. Not right now, he wouldn't. But now we're seeing Luka's faults, his deficiencies, especially on defense. When teams are in transition, Luka's a terrible defender. He's slow. We're not sure whether he's buying into defense as hard as he should. I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he isn't. But he's certainly not a tenacious defender.
He's definitely not. He's definitely not. You know what I mean? And Dallas's problem is finishing. They can't finish. That's their issue. They played pretty well. Here you go. You listen to what the quarter by quarter. 37, 25. They're up by 5 at the half, 29, and then 17 in the fourth quarter. 17 points in the fourth quarter. It wasn't like the Sixers were playing lockdown defense. They played the same type of defense that they were playing really since the second half. But they start to fold under the pressure. And that's Dallas's problem. I bet you if you look at the last 5 games, the fourth quarter is where they lose the game.
You wonder, is there a lesson to be learned with the Dallas Mavericks willing to move on from Jalen Brunson, not aggressively signing him when they had the opportunity to do it. And by the time they were willing to sign him, he already decided he was going to go to the Knicks. And they get a big name like Kyrie Irving. You kind of wonder, with the Philadelphia 76ers, do they have something like the Mavericks had in Brunson? Maybe a Tobias Harris. Imagine he goes elsewhere and he really flourishes elsewhere and is really, really good. And then you think later on, could we have maybe made it work with the Sixers? Same with Maxey. You kind of wonder. They're not quite fulfilling their potential 100% with the 76ers. But you kind of wonder if you're just patient with these guys, eventually maybe they'll get it right and be the type of player you want them to be. Sometimes there's a delayed reaction. Look at the Knicks with Emmanuel Quickly. All of a sudden, Quickly, who's just a reserve player, piece off the bench, he's turning into a star for the Knicks. He's turning into a star. And if they let him go elsewhere at the end of the season, he might be one of the bigger names in the NBA for all we know. But then again, you're taking a risk. He could also revert to just being a good bench player as well. So what do? You get in the Jalen Brunson situation. Do you buy all in on him? And if you do, it's a risk because the Sixers bought all in on Tobias Harris once, and it hasn't quite worked out. He's been good. But he hasn't been as good.
He hasn't been worth a max.
He hasn't been worth the max. But he goes somewhere else. Maybe he will be. And I'm not saying it's necessarily a change of scenery. Sometimes it just takes time, and a player kind of just puts it all together eventually.
So I liken Tobias Harris similar to another Philadelphia Sixer who had to go find himself once he left. That would be Andre Iguodala. And here it is. He was looked at here as like the number one guy, and he was okay. He was doing pretty well, but he really wasn't a number one guy. He goes and he finds his role with the Warriors, and the next thing you know, he's being Finals MVP. And he's doing he's got what, 3 or 4 rings now since that. Probably 3 rings, I think. So he's obviously found his niche. You know what I mean? And Tobias Harris could do that as well. But like I said, he has not lived up to his max deal contract. And ultimately, I think it's time for him to get traded.
You kind of wonder, could the Sixers work out some type of deal to get Jimmy Butler back? Because I get the feeling Jimmy Butler, by the end of this season, might gladly want out of Miami, because you just look at the way Miami's been playing. Miami passed the Nets for the 6th and final playoff position, and then they slump. They get beaten by the Nets head to head. And this is the Nets that were in a free fall. And the Nets fall behind Miami. And now they pass them. And it looks like the Nets are going to beat Miami out for the 6th and final playoff position, meaning Miami's going to be a play-in team. But 2 factors are there. Jimmy Butler loved Joel Embiid, vice versa. They love playing together. But Jimmy Butler has a chip on his shoulder. Can he ever forgive the Sixer organization for choosing Ben Simmons over him when push came to shove? Now, if you look at it now, you're going to laugh. You're going to say that was ridiculous. But in fairness to the Sixers, I supported the move at the time. Ben Simmons was an exceptional talent at that time. We thought was going to be a future star in the league. He's apparently flamed out, even though you never know what might happen down the road. Maybe Ben Simmons gets it together. You kind of feel even though he has a physical injury now, you kind of feel his problem has been mental. But I'm not trashing Ben Simmons here. He just hasn't worked out. He's regressed tremendously as a player. You just hope he's fine as a human being. And Jimmy Butler, you get the feeling he's not as interested as he could be right now. He's playing okay, but he's not playing like the superstar he could be.
Well, and we all knew what the problem was with Ben Simmons. There's talk in Philadelphia that Ben Simmons may never play again. That's that. And I kind of expect that he's made his money with the NBA, and he's going to get paid for his contract. But the NBA, the collective bargaining agreement's coming up, and they're waiting to see if the Players Association Craig's writing in a little note to us here.
We're having Craig Wright on it
At 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Our expert on the UFC and boxing.
Okay, I'll see if I can make that happen, Craig. But anyways, so I mean, Ben Simmons is still like a very polarizing figure in Philadelphia, and of course, he's got his back injury, which everybody believes is not really an injury. That it is a head problem. That he's got a mental issue with playing, and that he's going to get all of his contract, and he's never going to play again. And he was somebody who specifically is more in tune with what basketball could give him rather than playing the game.
Well, I don't know Ben Simmons. I can only speculate. You get the feeling the majority of NBA players, if they didn't get paid anything at all and they had to hold down other jobs, they would meet after work to just play pickup games because they really love the game. You get the feeling the vast majority truly love the game. But of course, once it becomes a job to you, it's a little different because there's a lot of travel and it's a wear and tear on your body. You know, you're getting on an airplane, arena to arena, city to city. But in the case of Ben Simmons, you just wonder, does he even care about the game anymore? If he was out of the NBA, would he even pick up a basketball beyond maybe taking a few shots and then leaving? So you don't know. But listen, this isn't about Ben Simmons. Say opening day today in baseball, Pax. And I'm going to tell you, the Yankees, they're at home against the San Francisco Giants. Big game, the biggest ovation of all the Yankee players is probably going to go to Aaron Judge. That would be my guess. I couldn't imagine a Yankee fan. Boom, Aaron Judge is back. Everyone is thrilled. Everyone is happy. Can you imagine, Pax? And I wonder whether this crossed this line. The San Francisco Giants are coming to Yankee Stadium. If Judge signed with the San Francisco Giants, and they're announcing the starting lineup, him coming out, can you imagine the level of booing that would greet Aaron Judge, the hostility, if he was a San Francisco Giant?
That I can imagine that wouldn't be fun. Here's what I don't like. It's in this statement that you just made. The Yankees are starting off their season with the San Francisco Giants, and then their second series is against the Philadelphia Phillies. Does that not seem odd to you?
It makes no. You're right, Pax. It makes no sense. Why are they starting off with National League teams? So you know what this tells us, Pax? The days of the rivalry with the American League and the National League are completely gone. Completely. They're meaningless. Meaningless. That's why you have the All-Star game. American League against National League. And even the way they switch teams, like league to league. The Houston Astros, who are traditionally a National League team, an American League team. As American League and National League mean nothing. Mac the other day on the show mentioned, what can we do to make the All-Star game more interesting? And the answer is nothing. You were yawning. I was yawning about it. Nothing. It's an exhibition game. Let the fans show up and just enjoy seeing all the stars on the field. But the game itself is just an exhibition game. It doesn't mean anything winning. It's not like it was years ago where you wanted one league to beat the other league. But, I always had mixed feelings on interleague play because you want to give fans in all the cities a chance to see every player at one time or another, not just wait for the World Series. You want short visits, but this is kind of ridiculous. The Yankees opening up with the San Francisco Giants and then the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, it just, I just don't get it. Yeah, I mean, they can't open up with an American League teams.
Like a divisional game. I feel like that's, you're supposed to open up with a divisional game. When I go back in time, I think about, it used to be that the Cincinnati Reds would open up with the Phillies. And that was opening day. That day game would always be one day before the rest of the season, the rest of the league, and it would always be one game opening day. And it was always typically the Reds. For some reason, baseball starts in Ohio, and I don't know why that is, but it is. Anyway, and the Phillies would be usually the ones playing that game. And then all of a sudden it changed. And these are some of the decisions that I'm not really excited about with baseball. It's one thing that you changed all the rules this year. And the games do seem to be going faster, that these games are now under 3 hours, which is nice. But ultimately, you notice that they didn't have the pitch clock in the World Baseball Classic. And in the playoffs, are you going to revert? Are you going to keep the pitch clock? The bases obviously are got to remain the same because you played with them all year long. Because there's actually a difference of distance of 6 inches when you now take those bases away. But ultimately, there are so many different things that I foresee that that they're doing wrong here. I agree. I think that I like the inner series. I like the interleague series. I thought that worked well. It was like, okay, we're going to have one series against the division and that's it. But to go like a hockey format and take away games from divisions, I feel is not the way to go.
Well, everything is out of whack. I mean, even the playoff format, they're going to be adding other wild card rounds. And as the years go by, it's going to be a longer process to get to the World Series. So you talk about all those Yankee dynasties in the past. Well, they would have their ticket right to the World Series. You come in first in the American League, you come in first in the National League, you're automatically in the World Series. You're not going to get knocked off in the playoffs beforehand. I can understand you want to give a lot of teams hope to get in the playoffs. I could kind of understand that, but there got to be a cutoff point after a while.
I agree. And it's only going to take one time where it's Colorado that is in the playoffs and they have snow games where they're going to have to be playing in snow because it snows in November. So imagine Colorado being in the World Series and having a game postponed due to snow.
Well, the Yankees and the Giants in 1962, there were terrible rain in San Francisco, and that World Series was delayed for about 10 days, during the series itself. Phillies, what do you see for the Phillies this year? I'm not optimistic. Let me be upfront. I'm picking the Phillies to come in 4th place in the East. Braves and Mets 1-2. I think the Miami Marlins had a couple of pickups. Got the batting champ from the Minnesota Twins. They got your guy, Segura, from the Phillies. The Marlins got him. He's going to add in some punch to that lineup. So they got a little more batting punch, good pitching. I think the Marlins eventually have to take a leap up. No, they're not going to get in the playoffs, but I think they're going to have a winning record this year. I think the Phillies starting the year with injuries, Harper, Segura, and
Segura's in Miami, so
Hoskins out for the year. Schwarber. And I just have, like I said, Hoskins out for the year. I just feel it's going to be a down year for the Phillies. Yeah, they might have a winning record, but I don't see them going to the playoffs. I see them just barely being a little over 500.
Huh. That's interesting that you say that. I don't think they win the division. I think Atlanta wins the division. But I do actually have them winning like 92 games and them coming in second in the division. I think the Mets it up badly. I think that they have, Edwin Diaz being out is only a little piece of that puzzle. But I mean, I just don't feel that. I think Scherzer is going to be out most of the season because he's going to get hurt. I feel that Verlander is good during the regular season. And of course, we're starting down in Texas, and we face our old friend DeGrom today. It's DeGrom versus Nola. And when I think back about the Mets and DeGrom, he pitched against the Phillies a lot, and they didn't win those games. He pitched great against the Phillies, and the Phillies he'd get into the eighth inning, and then the Mets would blow the games a lot of the time. So it's like he would wind up with no decisions, pitch a great game, wind up with no decision, and the Phillies would wind up winning that game ultimately.
Yeah, DeGrom won one of his Cy Young awards when it's something like 10-9. But make no mistake about it, if DeGrom is completely healthy, you won't find a better pitch in baseball.
I agree. I actually wanted him for the Phillies. I think that the Phillies pitching rotation is actually pretty good. Once Painter gets back and healthy, I think it's going to be even better. I right now we have Sanchez, Suarez. Ranger Suarez is also hurt, and I think he's going to come back real nice. I like, and Harper being out. Obviously they did not put him on the 60-day DL. They have him as I think he's on the 15-day or 20-day DL. So it's possible he can come back before July 4th. I'm not counting on that. I think that the Phillies are going to tread water till about August 1st. That they're going to be around 500, and then they're going to go on a little bit of a run. And I think that you see Rob Thompson is such a better manager than Joe Girardi was, that you're going to wind up, I think maybe even doing better than I expect.
Really, you're saying you just said a better manager. Maybe you should correct that.
Than Joe Girardi was.
For the Phillies, because Joe
Correct.
Girardi was manager of the year for the Miami Marlins, and then took the Yankees to a World Series title, and had a number of good years besides that. So, but Joe Girardi, it just didn't work out with the Phillies. Had Joe Girardi not resigned, and I know it was wearing on people, him being the manager, and that finally he couldn't take it anymore. But let's say his skin was thick enough to last out the year, and he just said to management, look, I promise you guys, don't fire me. Let me last out the year. If we don't at least go this far, I'm going to resign. I promise you. But just let me last it out to the end. And had he talked them into it, would the Phillies have gone to the World Series with Girardi, or would they have just continued on?
Nope, they would not have. His managing style conflicted with the way that the team operated. Like I said, and I remember when he got let go, and that day he went on he had a weekly show that he was going, and he still went on the show, and he sounded relieved. He just sounded more jovial than he had been that entire season. Yeah. And it was like everybody let up a big, and I think that that's what was necessary. I think that he was a little too stiff, a little too rigid for what this team really needed. And you had Thompson come in, and all of a sudden he's more of a Charlie Manuel type. Very baseball knowledgeable, is able to talk to the guys, but was able to lay his foot down and say, listen, you guys got to do what you guys need to do, and I'm going to let you guys do that. However, you need to listen to me. I'm not your friend anymore. This is no longer, we're not chummy. I'm the manager. You make sure you listen to me, and I'm going to lead us in the right direction. And next thing you know, we were the best team in baseball after starting off 22-27. And if you remember correctly, the weekend Girardi got fired, we had just swept the Angels handily, in fact. So, and in fact, the last game that Sunday, the Angels were leading, and that was where Bryson Stott hit the home run to take the lead or to win the game in the ninth, the 3-run home run in the ninth.
Now, you're talking about managers, and you wonder about a lot of times player-manager relationships. I know that played a big part in the Philly turnaround. A lot of players being more relaxed. I don't know whether you had a chance to catch that new documentary by Reggie Jackson. And
I have not.
listen, I was a Reggie Jackson fan when he played for the Yankees. I like Reggie Jackson, but I knew he was a self-centered guy. Did he want to win? Of course he wanted to win. I'm not questioning him wanting to win, but so much about Reggie was he himself. He had to be in the limelight the whole time. And during the documentary, Reggie Jackson was painting a narrative of the racism he had to endure throughout his life. And that was well justified in the documentary because he had to put up with a lot of garbage, especially going to Birmingham, Alabama, and all, as a minor leaguer and everything he had to go through. It's inexcusable what Reggie Jackson had to go through in society. But then he talked about his time with the Yankees with Billy Martin. And Billy Martin was a manager with a ton of faults. I wouldn't have wanted to play for Billy Martin. He was unpredictable, volatile. He was a drunkard. Let's be honest about it. He had a bad drinking problem. He could be totally unreasonable. He didn't want Reggie Jackson on his team to begin with when Reggie Jackson was a big name free agent. He wanted Joe Rudy instead, a very steady, dependable player. He didn't want a guy who could be a star. So he didn't have the best relationship with Reggie Jackson. He wouldn't have Reggie Jackson clean up what Reggie Jackson wanted to play. So Reggie Jackson says in the documentary, Billy Martin didn't want a black man to play cleanup. What the heck is he talking about? Chris Chambliss, who was a black man, was a cleanup hitter who Billy Martin put in there. And there's a ton of black players who loved Billy Martin, loved him. And there were a ton of white players who didn't like Billy Martin. Billy Martin wasn't a racist in any way, shape, or form. Yet Reggie Jackson is playing the sympathy card. Why he didn't have a good relationship is that being the reason. I nearly shut the documentary off. I can't, when Reggie Jackson was talking about all the racial abuse he had to endure as a player, as a human being, growing up, how demeaning it could be. I'm 100% with him on that. 100%. It was awful. But don't stop playing the race card when things aren't going your way. And in the case of Billy Martin, just say it for what it is. Billy Martin was an egotistical jerk. If he wanted to say that, okay. But with the evidence is right there. He didn't want to bat me clean. He didn't want a black man batting cleanup, meaning him. Once again, Chris Chambliss was black. Billy Martin loved Chris Chambliss. Chris Chambliss liked Billy Martin. Good relationship. But, it depended on the player. Larry Gura, white pitcher on the Kansas City Royals. Billy Martin hated him more than anyone in baseball and vice versa. Okay? But what could I tell you? It's Reggie, the big ego, wanting to put himself always first, foremost. And by the way, the cleanup position in baseball never made any sense to me. It's such stupidity and I always felt that way from the time I was a kid. The idea of cleanup is, well, the first three batters get on base and the fourth guy cleans it up by hitting a grand slam. First off, the first three guys virtually never get on base. The thing that would make the most sense would put your best hitter up first because you might get him up one extra time during the game.
Well, that's the one thing that analytics and Moneyball changed.
I didn't need Moneyball. I knew you want your best hitter to get up one extra time. Why save if your cleanup guy's your best hitter? If you got a Mike Trout, I don't want him hitting fourth. It could get the ninth inning. You move him up. Let him be a first hitter. Let him be a second hitter. I can understand the concept, well, if the pitcher's hitting ninth. But the odds are, by that point in the game, you're going to have pinch hitters anyway in the ninth slot.
Unless you're Tony La Russa and then your pitcher's hitting eighth because he was smarter than everybody else in baseball. I couldn't stand Tony La Russa. But anyways, I was never a fan of that.
Tony La Russa, in fairness to him, he did have a pretty successful managing career. Went to 3 World Series with the A's, won a World Series with the Cardinals there. I mean, he was had a
but you look at the talent that he had. It was like, I mean, you could almost say that Tony La Russa was brought to all of those World Series because of Mark McGwire. It's like he was Mark McGwire, Jose Canseco, Giambi was on that team, on the A's.
When they won any manager. But Tony La Russa prided himself in being an old school manager. So with the White Sox, his team's far ahead. And one of his batters swings on a 3-0 pitch and hits a home run. Tony La Russa chewed him out, the player, for showing up the other team. Well, what's he supposed to do? Take 3 strikes or take 2 strikes and then swing? 3-0, swing on the darn ball. I mean, you're not showing anyone up. The sensitivity of these athletes, I am sick of them, especially in the NBA. Russell Westbrook getting mad at a player because the clock is winding down 3-2 when he just shoots the ball at the end of the game. He's not trying to show anyone up. When you're trying to show someone up, when you drive to the basket 3-2-1 and you do a slam dunk instead of a layup, okay, and you get your points and you slam it down and then make a gesture. I could understand you being upset about that. That's not called for. But Russell Westbrook, I remember saying, that's not old school, not respecting the game. The old school players always used to shoot at the end of the game. 3-2-1, they would just heave it up, game over.
Right. And Russell Westbrook just wants to cry and cry and cry. I mean, first off,
yesterday, Frank, 36 points. Yesterday, he stepped up. The Clippers won. I don't mean to bash Russell Westbrook, but let me talk about his coach, Tyrone Lue. I don't know what type of person Tyrone Lue is. He might be a very nice person, a very good person. He strikes me as a kind-hearted person, but he did something he didn't do, which he talked about, which I think he's going to regret later. While the LA Clippers were losing, he missed funerals of a number of family members to stick with the Clippers to straighten out their losing streak. He says, I know they needed me there, but how could I leave my team when they're going bad? Tyrone Lue's going to see someday the Clippers are going to fire him. And he's going to say, how can they do that to me? I stuck with them and I didn't go to, funerals of family members just to help the organization. Well, he made the wrong decision. He should have gone to the funeral of the family member because no one's going to can the long run that he missed a few games, which the team would have understood and given them the okay to go. No one would have said, no, don't go, Tyrone, stick behind. Listen, I know, and I'm not going to mention his name. It was a dear friend of mine, a broadcaster, okay? And I'm not going to mention his name. Good person, close friend. I was invited to his granddaughter's bar mitzvah. I show up there. My friend's not there. He's off with the broadcast crew out of town. I assumed he was going to be there. I'm invited. I'm there. He's not there. Later, his broadcast entity diminished his role. And he was complaining to me about all the sacrifices he's made for them. And I told him, you should have been at your granddaughter's thing. Don't make these sacrifices. I mean, listen, I can understand the most unusual of circumstances, but let me tell you who I respected. You might not like, but who did something I respected. Adam Schefter. I heard that he said this. His son's high school graduation was supposedly the night of the NBA draft, even though it was late April. There was going to be some conflict. And he said he's going to the graduation. He's not going to be there doing his NFL report the night of the thing. And that's when they need him more than any other time. Wow. That's a bold move, and that said a lot.
Well, you know what? And I actually I don't have a problem with Shefty. I think Shefty's actually a really good reporter, and I like the fact, I like the fact that there are like three guys that everybody goes to have something come out. That's it makes it easier to try to follow. And you never really hear Shefty go against the grain where it's like, oh, I'm reporting something too quickly and to have any problem. So I don't have a problem with Schefter at all. But I absolutely agree. I mean, listen, it's my daughter's birthday tomorrow. You know what I mean? And this went into the consideration on whether I wanted to go down to Dallas to go to the opening series. It's like, when you're planning your season and you're planning all of this stuff out, it's like, all right, this game's here and I got to get down there, and I'm going to be going down at the end of April to go to Kansas City and try to do all this. And then after all of that's done, all of that planning is done, you start to think about your family. Well, family's not going to go anywhere. My daughter is more important than any sporting event ever. You know what I mean? Now, my daughter's going to be turning 13 years old, tomorrow. And if I was down in Dallas for that, I mean, she's only going to turn 13 once, and there have been times where I have been at games and I have missed family events, but, things like that are more important, and family always is going to trump sports, so I can appreciate when they make those types of decisions. I also understand, like when you're talking about Tyronn Lue, when it comes to a funeral, I am not the best death guy. So when it comes to stuff like that, I probably would go along those same lines. I'd be like, oh, I am not as much help. I know that the family wants to be there and stuff like that, but I'm not that emotionally strong when it comes to death. I don't always say the right things. I don't always do the right things when it comes to that stuff. So sometimes I feel it's best if I'm removed from that situation and have private conversations rather than be in a public setting with everybody. So maybe he has that same type of situation as well. I can't speak for, because I've never dealt with him. And he used the guise of, hey, I got to help my team through this, to use as a crutch around the fact that he doesn't have that emotional fortitude.
Right now, losing streaks. The team was losing. Had the team been winning, would it then have made a difference, him going? I mean, if it wouldn't have made if he had to stick with his team no matter what, and he had private conversations, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. There's this famous story with family with George Steinbrenner. George Steinbrenner would always say family comes first, but he was hopelessly addicted to the Yankees and winning. This is the 1977 playoffs to see who'd get into the World Series against the Kansas City Royals. Best 3 out of 5. The Yankees are down 2-1. They're on the brink of elimination. He has, at North Carolina, his daughter went to school, and they have family day, and he had committed to be with his daughter all day. He shows up at North Carolina instead of being with the team, for game 4 over there. So, and what does George Steinbrenner do? He finds a couple of the guys in the dorm, and he's watching the game with them, the Yankee Royal game, and he keeps saying to his daughter, we have plenty of activities, honey. We're going to be involved. We're going to do this, do that. But he couldn't leave the TV set. And can you imagine the students in the dorm, George Steinbrenner, the Yankee game's going on with everything on the line, and he's watching the game with us here? It's kind of funny in a way. The guy.
It is kind of funny. And you think about that, like it's iconic moments like that, like you remember, you weren't even there. And all those kids that were there in that dorm room watching with George Steinbrenner, watching the Yankees game, they probably weren't even Yankees fans, but he's in there watching the game with them. You become a Yankees fan after that. It's just like when I am going back and forth when I'm starting to yell at players when I'm at a game, and one of the players starts to yell back at me, or actually starts to we get to banter back and forth. I become a fan of that guy because he's engaged me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, I don't get engaged very often. So, like, I mean,
It
I've
depends how they engage your packs. If the guy's nasty, you're not a fan of his.
well,
If he
exactly,
comes back at you-
exactly. But
if he comes back at you and he's angry, but in a negative type of anger, if he's a little angry because he's hurt, you might become a fan of him because you feel he's just hurt by what you say. But if he's been like treating you, you think in a demeaning way back, and it depends. Listen, there was a baseball pitcher. I got to ask my friend who's an attorney, can I ever mention these guys' names? I'm not even sure is he alive now because it happened when I was a kid. I say something to him from the stands politely. I think it may have been, can I have your autograph? And he motioned his hand, get the hell out of here, like he was going to hit me. A player nasty. Like, what the heck is that all about? I'm a kid. But you remember stuff like that, okay? And I'll mention one player's name. He wasn't rude to me, but his tone wasn't friendly because maybe he was harried. Ron Swoboda was signing autographs when I was a kid, and I leaned over for me to get an autograph, and I guess my hand went too far. I must have been like 11 years old or so. And he told me in a way, like, move your hand out of the way, I'm signing here. But I took it like a way in the sense that he was upset with me. So you kind of remember that, but it may have just strictly been my perception, at the
right.
time being a kid.
Right. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Russell Westbrook's my favorite player. I'll be honest. I don't have a problem personally with Russell Westbrook. I may say that he's soft and what have you, and he definitely remembers me because every time he comes to town, and I give him a shout out. Like last time, he was kind of blowing me off and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But that's fun. You know what I mean? Again, because I don't ever treat them nasty. They are human beings. Now, if I was ever to go at a player, because like I said, I never hit below the belt. I never curse at them. Like I said, I hold them in a very high regard because again, they're humans. Beyond everything else, they may make a lot of money playing a kid's game, but they're human beings. You know what I mean? So, and I don't ever take offense. Like it says, that my team isn't my mom. I don't have to defend their honor. So I'm never in that type of mood. However, if they were to ever attack me because they don't like what it is that I'm saying, I will definitely go back. You know what I mean?
What do you think of the dispute going on with Charles Barkley and Kevin Durant right now? There seems to be a back and forth, and we keep hearing when things like this happen, oh, it's not personal. But let's be honest, it becomes personal. I mean, I've dealt with situations in the media where when I look back years later, I think, I may have gotten a little too personal with them. They may have gotten a little too personal with me. Maybe it could have been toned down a little bit. But the latest is Charles Barkley saying with Kevin Durant, can't take criticism in the slightest. And Kevin Durant comes back at Charles Barkley, and it's on and on. And Barkley says the modern athlete can't take criticism. He has a point. It depends what type of criticism. I mean, you're going to, talk about the guy. And when is the media taking cheap shots at players? I want to know if you feel a player's not hustling, he's not playing up to his potential, you're entitled to say so. I mean,
I agree. And I think that I think that this day and age, I'm not going to say it's different. Well, it is very different from when Charles was around, but I think now everybody's got something to say. And that's the problem with social media is that as much as you try to tell them not to read it, they're stuck reading it. They're going to read it and they're going to see what's written about them, and they're going to hear what's written about them. So I believe players right now are a little bit, now I won't even say a little bit, a lot more on guard because of that their back is automatically up. So when somebody starts to say something bad, and the criticism, they feel they have to defend themselves. So, and I can imagine that's what happened here a little bit. Now, Charles is also very well known for doing the things that get under people's skin. You know what I mean? He's good at getting under players' skin, and he actually, I feel like a lot of those players use it as motivation for that. But
Well, he said about Klay Thompson earlier in the year. Klay Thompson's not the same player he was. Fair criticism, because the truth of the matter is, due to injuries, Klay Thompson wasn't. Klay Thompson got really mad. He took it personal. Since then, he's become like comeback player of the year. I mean,
Right.
since then, he used it, like you said, probably as motivation. But all of a sudden, other people attacking Charles Barkley for what he said about Klay Thompson. What did he say that was inaccurate? The truth of the matter is, and this is coming from a Klay Thompson fan, he wasn't the same player he was because of the injuries. Charles Barkley's not saying he lacked intestinal fortitude. He wasn't saying that he lacked character in any way. And Klay Thompson got very mad, saying Charles doesn't understand how hard it is to come back from the injuries, this and that, what I have to put into it and all. And he took it so personal. That got nothing to do with it. The bottom line is, Klay Thompson wasn't the same player for whatever reason. He still isn't quite the same player he was, but he's at least getting there, you could say. And so Charles Barkley got needlessly attacked. And even with Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley criticized years ago the job Michael Jordan was doing with the Hornets, the type of people he would maybe be surrounding him with. So now Jordan wanted nothing to do with Charles Barkley. But the truth of the matter is, when you have a lot of guys around you, and and they depend on you making their living, their money, you're gonna have a lot of people yesing you, not telling you what you want to hear. Also, and the bottom line is, Michael Jordan has done a miserable job as owner of the Charlotte Hornets. Terrible, terrible. We go after a guy like James Dolan and some other owners for the job they've been doing. You tell me a worse owner in sports, and don't mention Daniel Snyder, please, a worse owner in sports than Michael Jordan. And I'm not talking about as a human being. I'm talking about their performance as an owner of a franchise.
You mean like the owners of the Philadelphia Flyers?
Okay, let's say this. If we had to group them, the Flyer owners, you could say, would be amongst the worst owners in sports. Correct. But if we have to do a division of the worst owners, wouldn't Michael Jordan be in that division with
I agree.
Flyers?
I absolutely agree. For somebody who was iconic as he was in basketball and has the resources that he has available to him, to not show that competitive fire that he showed on the court for his franchise is what I would think Charles Barkley is talking about. Obviously you don't have the right people around you. You may have people that you like around you, but they ain't the right people around you for this franchise, and you need to do something about it. And ultimately, if you can't take that type of criticism, then there's something else. That's more of a flaw in your character, not the person who's selling you. Because the truth of the matter is that when you have to look in the mirror, you need to see those things. And if you can't see them, you need to have a real friend be able to tell you that and say to you, hey, these are the things that I'm seeing you're doing wrong. You could take it with the grain of salt, but if you want to actually resolve the issues, you need to do something about it. And that's part of the issue here, that he wasn't doing anything about it. Yeah. So, and now you see where the Bobcats are, and he's going to put them up for sale. I mean, we talk about Kevin Durant. as a Phoenix Sun, he's a partial owner of the Philadelphia Union.
Oh, wow.
So, and he has been to a few Union games. When he comes out, he is celebrated, and he's not celebrated as a basketball player, although he stands out in the crowd because he is 7'2", and he's a great.
He's not 7'2". He's not that tall.
He's taller than everybody else. So,
right.
But obviously he's able to, like I said, he stands out, and he is an owner of the Union. And right now, the Union is a great franchise. So they have done those things.
Durant, he returned to action last night for the Phoenix Suns. Say what you want about Kevin Durant. He's not a prima donna. That's the perception, but he really isn't. If you look at the timeline in his career, he was a good soldier at OKC. He really was. And eventually, he didn't enjoy playing with Russell Westbrook. They were both number ones there. And there was a dispute who was the better player at that time, Durant or Westbrook. We didn't know for sure, but they weren't coexisting that great. They did get OKC to the finals once, so they did have a degree of success. We should admit that. But eventually, Durant felt he just had to move on as a free agent. And he went to a stacked Golden State team who may have won championships even without him, but they won it with him, and he won a couple of finals MVPs. Steph Curry, the ultimate team player, deferred to Durant. He put his ego on the side to win to Steph Curry, a lesson for everyone to learn. So Steph Curry, to me, even though he won a finals MVP once, to me, he's like a 3-time MVP finalist in reality, for him putting his own ego on the side. So Durant then leaves the Warriors. It was his right to leave the Warriors, but I guess you become a free agent. You can go wherever the heck you want. That's your business. So he goes to the Nets, but he wasn't on the level of Kyrie. He didn't create a disturbance, even though he did ask for a trade in the offseason. But when he came back, he bought in. He came to practice. He worked hard. He never dogged it at all. Okay? And then he goes to Phoenix, and reportedly the net organization, they liked him, but he wanted out. Just because you want to be traded, it doesn't make you a prima donna. You can want to be traded as long as you're working hard during practice and not letting up, okay? Not letting up with the team you're on. And now he's with Phoenix. And you talk about deals, Pax, that could be a blessing in disguise. The Nets get a package for Durant. Mikal Bridges, who was a 76er for about 12 minutes before they traded him. He looks like he's going to be a star. So the Nets, I don't want to say going to get the better of this deal. If Phoenix wins an NBA championship, the deal is a success no matter what for them. Mikal Bridges could go to the Hall of Fame with a couple other guys, but if they win one chip there, it's a success for Phoenix. But if not, if Durant plays a couple of years, they don't go to the finals. Phoenix, Mikal Bridges is a major star, and the others, the Nets win that deal.
I agree. So listen, we are at the top of the hour, so we're going to go take a quick commercial break. On the backside of that, we're going to have Craig Wright, who is in our backstage currently. So we're going to be able to talk about what's going on in boxing and in MMA. So I'll probably be quiet for a lot of that time, let you guys do your talking. But we'll be back right after these commercial messages with the second half of the Mac and Jack Show. Stay tuned.
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or a Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
Mr. Green?
Yeah.
You need any help?
Mm-mm.
I just want you to know, I think you're the best ever.
Yeah, sure.
Want my Coke? It's okay, you can have it.
No.
Really, you can have it.
Okay.
A Coke and a smile makes me feel good, makes me feel nice.
Be around.
That's the way it should be. I like to see
Hey, kid.
the whole world is smiling with me. Coca-Cola and Sprite. Have a Coke and
Thanks, Mean Joe.
smile.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face.
Oh, I'm from Brooklyn.
Hey, get an each.
And welcome back to our Thursday edition of our Mac and Jack show. And as I said, we start off this hour with our special guest, Craig Wright, who is knowledgeable in everything boxing and in MMA. He's going to be able to teach me some stuff because I pay no attention to it.
He's already said the Lions are going to beat the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. Yeah,
Man, listen, I ain't going that far. Hold on, let me cut you off for a second, Jack. Man, you beat the Eagles in playoffs? We got to actually make the playoffs first. First off, actually, not even go that far. Let's start the season, the first 4 games. Let's actually be 500. Let's start right there. At least 500.
Yeah, you want to be 500? You got to there.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And we started off the season, 1-6. That's what I'm saying. Let's start off the season actually winning. Let's get the momentum rolling then. I'm not even, listen, playoffs. Hold on. I got to go Jim Moore on him. Playoffs?
So you know what? But I obviously I'm now just realizing that you're a Detroit Lions fan. I have a ton of friends up there who are Detroit Lions fans. They are probably one of the most loyal fan bases around that have dealt with tons of crying to be a fan of that team. So I can really appreciate if you are a sworn Lions fan. Here, I applaud you just on that alone.
Yes, sir. Hey, like I told Jack previously, I'm born and raised in Detroit. Been a Lions fan my whole life, so I am very used to losing. I'm too young to remember back when we won our last playoff game. It was Barry Sanders. I believe we beat the Cowboys. That was like 1993. I was 6 years old. That don't even count. Since I've been alive, not since I've been alive, since I've really been watching sports, we've made the playoffs twice. We lost to the Saints back when they were on fire, and we got robbed by the Cowboys one time too. The Cowboys got a couple of favorable calls at the end of that playoff game. Well, like I said, man, I'm used to losing. So
The Lions won 2 playoff games in 55 years.
I don't count the wins. Me personally, I don't count the wins because I wasn't watching. I was a baby when they won those games. I mean, yeah, they did it, but
the Lions,
I ain't seen them win anything.
the Detroit Lion fans are submissive. Case in point is Pags. When he went to Detroit, when the Eagles were playing the Lions, he walked through the tailgate parties. Any other stadium, he would get harassed. The Lion fans were patting him on the back.
That's not true. They all love me everywhere I go, so it doesn't matter. I'm always getting patted on the back everywhere I go. It's not just in Detroit.
Hey,
however,
Russell Westbrook don't like you.
No, he does not. He does not like me. And that's okay, and that's all right because I have every time I see Russell Westbrook, I love to yell his name out to him. Russell.
Hey, it comes with the territory. He's making hundreds of millions of dollars. He could at least take that.
Yeah, well, and he doesn't take it very well. He does not.
Craig has another title too. I think he's president of the Tank Davis fan club. He loves Tank Davis.
Now listen, I was thinking about this. And you remember last time we talked, Jack? We were talking about why Gervonta Davis is so charismatic and so many people are drawn to him. And I brought up the point of Floyd Mayweather, how pretty much he rode Floyd Mayweather's coattail on his way to the top.
Floyd promoted.
Definitely. So one thing you have to understand with that is when Floyd, and you're a boxing fan, so you understand this. Floyd Mayweather had a lot of fans, but he had a lot of haters too. A lot of people did not like to see that man win. And honestly, the Luis Castillo fight, the first one I thought he lost, and he got into a few situations with the law. Other than those, he ain't really lost a lot. All right, he really ain't lost a lot. All right. So now saying that, I don't have the facts, but I kind of feel that the people that hated Floyd Mayweather and wanted to see Floyd Mayweather lose, they kind of passed that hate on to Gervonta.
Well, no, you know what it is? All attention is good attention. I mean, like,
definitely.
When I've written about certain fighters and they've complained, I tell them, I'm doing you a favor. I'm getting your name out there. Even a promoter, if I'm writing about him in a negative way, people are reading about him. You know, it brings more attention to someone. It builds up their brand, as long as you don't get too personal in that sense. And with the Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, they reminded me of a couple of kids I had as students at times where, you know, you have to put them in timeout and deal with them. But the fight on its own, it's a great fight coming up. Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia. But this weekend, this Saturday, in a couple of days, I guess the big story is the return of Anthony Joshua.
Yes, sir.
Fight that really fulfilled his potential. You know, he's coming off the 2 losses to Alexander Usyk, and no matter what, Joshua's a big name in that division. A big name because you have Fury and Usyk, but right behind them is Joshua.
All right. Well, first let me get the card going for you. So yeah, this Saturday we got for heavyweight we got Anthony Joshua coming in 21. Oh, I'm sorry. I actually read that wrong. All right, we got Anthony Joshua coming in 24-3, 22 KOs, going against Jermaine Franklin, who's 21-1 with 14 KOs. Now, honestly, Jermaine Franklin, I don't really know too much about Jermaine Franklin. I'm just gonna comment on Anthony Joshua about this. It's all about legacy at this point for him. Like he's probably made more money than any other boxer today. Besides, he's probably made more money than everyone, even though he's not the best heavyweight. But over there in England, he's made plenty of money. So it's not about the money for him. It's about legacy right now. And man, you usually put a man. I don't see him beating any of the top guys, Jack. He definitely didn't beat Usyk.
Well, the fight with Jermaine Franklin has fought only one name opponent, Dillian White. In a past time, Dillian White, he's fought him within the past year. and he lost a very close decision, a decision that could have gone either way.
Yes, sir.
And so that's your yardstick. Dillian White, the same Dillian White who didn't even give Tyson Fury a fight, who's not the fighter he was. But it's a viable opponent for Joshua because he's coming off 2 losses. So it's a perfect fight. You're giving him a guy with a little bit of a name who has a
kind of a tune-up.
Yeah. Who he's going to beat.
I'm sorry?
I can't hear you. What, Craig?
I said it's kind of a tune-up.
Yeah, kind of a tune-up for bigger thing. And we don't know what's going to be next for Joshua, but it's got to be one of the big names. Who it's going to be.
I'm sorry to cut you off talking about Joshua, because he now has oh man, I forget who's his trainer now? Who trains Errol Spence?
Oh, Derek James.
Derek James. So now he's being trained by Derek James. And I'm not so sure of Joshua's the zone deal, but I kind of feel because Derek James is he works with PBC like closely. I feel that's kind of opening the door for Joshua to come fight the PBC guys. What do you think about that?
That's a very perceptive thought. I've never thought of that. You got me to thinking for the first time. Why would Eddie Hearn be okay, Joshua's promoter, with Joshua training in Dallas with Derek James there? Unless Eddie Hearn had absolutely no say on the trainer. I wonder whether he thinks about that. Would Derek James maybe be whispering in his ear to go over to the PBC? Or would Derek James even be interested in that stuff at all? Or would Al Heyman behind the scenes, you have an in, or Errol Spence and the Charlo brothers who train under Derek James, would they be talking to Joshua at all about it? But then again, Joshua would have an ironclad contract, you'd think, with the Zone and with Eddie Hearn as his, promoter, where he couldn't go elsewhere, regardless.
I mean, but if he stays with the Zone, who's he going to fight?
Oh, he's a big name. They'll come to him. Tyson Fury, for example.
Oh, yeah, we got Tyson Fury. He's a free agent.
If Tyson Fury wants a major fight, the public is not going to accept him and Deontay Wilder as a 4th fight. It might do some good numbers, him and Wilder again. If history repeats itself, didn't Manny Pacquiao fight Juan Manuel Marquez a 4th time? People didn't want to see him fight.
The 4th fight didn't do as good, though. The 4th fight didn't do as good.
The numbers didn't do as well. Right. And Fury, Wilder, and Fury wants a certain amount of money that Frank Warren and Bob Arum can't deliver that money, and you know what? The thing that's revealing about the negotiations that broke down with Fury and Usyk is that Frank Warren and Bob Arum haven't attacked the Usyk side, claiming they're unreasonable, they're this, they're that, because they have no argument. So Frank Warren, what he's trying to do to pass the blame is saying, well, this shouldn't have gone on social media. They shouldn't have complained to social media. That messed the fight up. Nothing to do with their negotiations. Frank Warren is full of it when he says that. It's Tyson Fury, who's so ridiculously difficult to deal with. And now Tyson Fury's argument is, how can I be scared of a cruiserweight? I beat Wilder 3 times. Actually, one was a draw. He got knocked down a few times. He's saying, I beat Klitschko and I beat Dillian White. Dillian White had nothing left when he beat him. Klitschko
Styles make fights.
Past his peak at the time. I'm not saying Fury is scared of Usyk. You got to be in the right mindset for a big fight like that. And Fury, you get the feeling he's living a comfortable life now. His head isn't into fighting. He wants the money. He wants the prestige. He doesn't want to go into work. It's like the guy wanting his paycheck without working. You mentioned Ben Simmons in that regard, Pags. Tyson Fury has a Ben Simmons type attitude. Ben
Simmons don't get punched in the face.
The Ben Simmons of the Sixers.
And so, but let me ask this question, because Wilder's been saying about Fury that that he's a cheater. Is there any, I mean, is that just, I am, I lost and I can't really explain it, so I'm going to try to make some type of narrative for that, or?
Okay, well, Tyson Fury has definitely tested positive for cocaine. Jack, did he test positive for performance enhancing drugs? I'm not sure about that.
No, there's no record to really to that. Tyson Fury's problem right now, he was associated with Daniel Kinahan, who's on a United States list that anyone who is associated with him can't come to the United States, meaning Fury is not allowed to come into the United States to fight. That's another thing that ticks me off about this situation with Usyk. Usyk was willing to fight in England and let Fury have a 70-30 split. If you go into a guy's home country, shouldn't you get more money for giving up home advantage? He's giving Fury home advantage on top of that. Okay? Fury, any demand Usyk would accept, Fury wants more and more and more. And it gets to the point where it gets to be demeaning. You mentioned like with Errol Spence before, the fight with Terence Crawford. It could have easily happened.
Definitely.
Had about legacy. All Spence had to do was say, I'll take a 50-50 split. The PBC had to agree with Crawford. Maybe they could have worked something out, a rematch clause where the next fight Crawford would fight for the PBC money guarantee. That they could have worked it out. But Spencer's starting out with his, whatever number, 65, 35, this and that. And, and it never happens after a while.
All right. So we got, not this Saturday, next Saturday, we have a boxing event and we have UFC event. I'm going to stay on the boxing for right now. So on the 8th, April 8th, we have our boy Shakur Stevenson coming in at 19-0 with 16 KOs. He's, this is a Japanese name right here. He's going against Shushi. Hold on, sorry. I'm just going to pronounce the last name. Yoshiro. Yoshiro's coming in at 16-0. And then this is a lightweight fight. And like I said, again, I don't know too much about our Japanese friend here, but Shakur Stevenson is definitely the cream of the crop. He dominated 130. I feel he'll definitely do the same at 135. I have him decisively beating everyone except for Gervonta. Honestly, I feel Gervonta is.
Even Devin Haney, you haven't beat.
I have him. I feel that Devin is an excellent boxer. I feel that Shakur is better defensively. I feel Shakur is better defensively. Period. I don't think.
Will Shakur Stevenson get the big fights going forward? That's the question, because he's the type of fighter no one wants to fight. He's got a shutdown style, not an exciting style, a shutdown style. And the one fight that Shakur Stevenson you thought would have gotten and it didn't work out, the guy who edged him out for the gold medal, Ramirez. But Ramirez is fighting this weekend for like a WBO featherweight title against Isaac Dogbo. But the problem is Ramirez lost his debut, and then because Stevenson moved up a couple of divisions and Ramirez stayed where he was, he's never getting his revenge fight. Who's there for Stevenson logically to fight? Unless Lomachenko upsets Devin Haney, then they would make that fight, Bob Arum said, Lomachenko against Stevenson, because they're both promoted by Top Rank. But we know that's going to happen. We know Devin Haney's going to beat Lomachenko, don't we? I mean, at least I think I can see Lomachenko winning.
Let me tell you this. Jack. I definitely think Devin Haney's going to beat Lomachenko, and I feel I feel I got this whole thing because with the promotional companies, you got PBC, Top Rank. I kind of feel there's this thing where everyone's going to PBC. Like I really feel that. I feel that, man. I really feel it. I really feel it. I think the fighters from, if I'm not mistaken, the PBC fighters make more money than everyone else, especially the ESPN fighters. I don't think the ESPN fighters make all that much. But let me tell you this: Shakur is a young fighter. And like I said in my head, I think once that I don't know the exact contract with the ESPN. I don't know how many fights is left for Devin. But I feel once his contract is up, he's going to get out of there. He was with the Zone. He got out of the Zone. He went to ESPN. He's going to get out of there. But I say that to say, after he leaves and Lomachenko is on the sunset of his career, who else does ESPN have to promote? Who else does Top Rank have to promote besides Shakur Stevenson? He is going to get his shot.
I'm going to tell you what could be revealing. I mean, you're making a great point, Craig. Another one I never thought of that I'm thinking about now for the first time because of the point you're making. No, about Shakur Stevenson. He's very close on a personal level with Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford left Top Rank because they couldn't get him the big fight. But I think Top Rank did well by Terrence Crawford personally. They got him decent paydays, but they didn't have the other welterweights signed. So let's say Shakur Stevenson leads Top Rank for whatever reason. I mean, but who's to say he would get the type of deal he wanted with the PBC? And Al Heyman treats the fight as well. But in the beginning, when Al Heyman first went into business big time, he had a lot of funding behind him. They overpaid fighters at that point. And a lot of the money was kind of used up in a sense. They're still big time promoters. But it's a tricky slope. And again, I don't know what Stevenson is. There's going to be a career that never fulfills its full potential because they just have him fighting guys like the Japanese fighter over and over and over. So he's only going to get a big fight to make him a mega star.
But that's what I'm saying. All the big fights are at PBC.
No, that's not true at all. I mean,
so who is Shakur going to fight then over at Top Rank? Besides Devin Haney, if he gets that opportunity.
You're talking about, okay, let's talk about the big fights for maybe even Davis, Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia's with Golden Boy. Hypothetically, you could have slotted in for Stevenson ahead instead of Tank Davis. They wouldn't have done as big a business as this fight's going to do with Tank. But that would have been a very big fight, The promotional entities will work together if there are no other options, logically speaking. They finally have to, cash out. That's the only reason Mayweather and Pacquiao was made after 5 years. They ran out of options to make money. Mm-hmm. What do you think about splitting up from Floyd after being with him his whole career? And the rumor was, I heard, Tank went to train at Floyd's gym where he's worked out all along, and Floyd banned him from the gym.
You kind of cut out a little bit, but I think you said something in regards to Floyd kicking Gervonta out the gym, right?
He wouldn't allow him in the Mayweather gym, Tank in the gym, because Tank is no longer with him officially.
You just said all the exact word. I don't know. I can't get the exact word you said, but all attention is good attention.
He's been promoted by Floyd just about his whole career. Now he's like a free agent going his own way. Okay, maybe there's a small association. The Tank worked out at the Mayweather gym in Las Vegas all these years. And now Tank went there to work out, and reportedly Mayweather banned him from the gym, wouldn't allow him there to work out.
Like I said, all promotion is good promotion. All attention is good attention. Though Floyd is a master with the cameras. I don't believe 1 second any beef they have ever had. I don't believe 1 second of Gervonta being disgruntled and wanting to leave. That's all to get us doing what we're doing right now. That's how I think.
Well, yeah, you're better off when you get to a certain point. Only a few fighters can afford this, are better off being free agents. You're so big, you don't need a promoter. Like a Mike Tyson didn't need a promoter after a while. He could have went promoted to promote as a free agent. Canelo Alvarez is kind of that way. Sugar Ray Leonard, a few names don't have to get promoted, get moved a certain way, because if they're on their own, they're so big, they could make so much money for any promoter on a one-fight deal that promoter will work with them for the one fight.
All right, listen, y'all want to get into this UFC for a little bit?
Yeah. I'm tired of talking boxing here. I want to learn.
Remind you, listen
about the UFC. I want to learn about the business dealings in the UFC, everything.
This is why I'm going to cut you off, because Matt got me messed up. I am not a UFC expert. I know way more about boxing than what I do UFC. But I'm willing to do
UFC.
But I'm willing to do my due diligence. You know, like I told Mac, like I'm not here to be the best. I'm here to help you guys. So like I did my thing. Like I studied a little bit of UFC. So yeah, like I said, not this Saturday, but next Saturday we have the two cards. We have the Shakur Stevenson boxing card, but then we have the UFC card, and it's UFC 287, and that is featuring Alex Pereira coming in at 7-1, going against Israel Asada, who comes in at 23-2. Who suffered a KO loss in his last fight to Alex Pereira. And then we have a good welterweight fight with Gilbert Burns coming in at 21-5, going against Jorge Masvidal. He's a really popular fighter. He's coming in. He has a 35-16. Yeah, he got a lot of fights in. But okay, going back to the Alex Pereira and Israel Asada. Israel's one of the more popular fighters in MMA today. Like I said, his last fight, he went against Alex Pereira. I believe Israel had moved up in weight for that fight, and he ended up getting KO'd. So he's coming back for some revenge. I really can't call the fight. I mean, man knocked him out last time, so I don't see why he can't knock him out this time again. But
how often do these guys fight?
I'm sorry?
How often do the top guys in the UFC fight? Would you know? Because the boxers, if you ask me a question, how often would a champion fight? I'll say 2-3 times a year. That would be my conservative guess. It's rare that a champion fights 4 times a year. That's a lot. 2 or 3 times. A guy like Canelo Alvarez, 2 fights a year. That's what I would say. That's the type of schedule these guys get on once they're established. What about a UFC guy? Do you know how often these guys fight the top guys?
Yeah, I'd say the top guys wouldn't fight no more than 4 or 5 times a year. But it all depends on the situation and the opponent. And then you got like John Jones, of course. He's had all kinds of issues. He's probably fought once in the last like 2-3 years, something like that. You know.
And what's the reputation of Dana White in UFC? Is he considered a good guy? Is he considered a guy with issues? Is he considered a guy that vastly underpays his fighters? What's his reputation?
Well, it depends on your perspective. Like I believe in our, not in our last stream, but in one of the streams I was in your chat. We were talking about the UFC. And I had mentioned that the top fighters in boxing make more than the top fighters in the UFC, but that's just the top fighters. I had read or seen something saying that like so let me rephrase that a little bit. Of course, like we got the Errol Spences. He makes $5 million, but he's at the top of the card. You got guys that the undercard, they're not making $5 million. They're not making all that much money. Whereas what I hear from the UFC, the lower tier guys in the UFC make more than the lower tier guys in boxing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know? And then on top of that, Dana White, he explained this one thing, whereas he explained this thing saying that a lot of the money that the UFC make, he reinvests in the UFC, which builds the brand and makes the brand as big as it is. You can take that as much as you want, but you made a great point.
When you said not getting the money, what do they care about him building up the brand?
Exactly.
Not getting paid.
You made a great point saying that if he wants to make a big splash to sign Terrence Crawford, but he'd never do anything like that. He wouldn't get into the boxing world because he's not paying his fighters that much money.
The margins are too low.
Yeah.
What did you think of Don King signing Adrian Broner? And King had a suitcase, and you saw all the $100 bills packed in. And now, make believe you were Adrian Broner, you were a fighter, and he was giving you, Craig, a $100,000 bonus you agreed upon. And he said, I could either write you out this check for $100,000, Craig, you could have $30,000 in cash. And he opened the suitcase. Would you leave with the suitcase, Craig? Or would you take the check? What would you do?
I'm taking the check.
So why is the suitcase open with all the $100 bills King showing?
So we can talk about it. So we can see everything. That's it right there. And then let me tell you this. It's funny you mentioned the Don King. Adrian Broner, he got to take what he can take. He had a deal with, if you're familiar with Black Prime, he had like a deal fighting for Black Prime. He had 3 fights come up. All of them ended up being canceled. And then the Black Prime deal fell out. Adrian Broner, like, it's 2 things. You got to take what someone's offering you. I mean, that's all you can take. Just like the Lamar Jackson situation. You can only take what someone offers, period. And Adrian Broner has done a really good job of shooting himself in the foot over his career.
Well,
a great job.
Those erratic personalities. I didn't cut you up. Do you have anything on the UFC? Because I was going to mention when you were saying taking all you can.
UFC right now.
On Lamar Jackson, as far as getting all you can, it's all about a market with an athlete. And you know, before, and then Paxton comments on this. I'm a little surprised, I'll be honest. I thought there'd be a much bigger market for Lamar Jackson, because to me, a healthy Lamar Jackson is one of the best quarterbacks in football. You know, my opinion there, he's dynamic. He's a game changer. He's only 26. I mean, I can't see it. If I were the Jets, I'm a Jet fan, I would have gone after Lamar Jackson sooner than Aaron Rodgers, because Lamar Jackson could be there long term. And also the style of offense you're running on the Lamar Jackson, that's suited to Zach Wilson as a backup if Lamar Jackson went down as an injury. But in any event, it's getting ugly between the Ravens and Lamar Jackson now.
All right. Who, besides Washington, New York Jets, who needs a quarterback?
Atlanta
just named Ritter the starter.
Yeah,
so,
but Lamar Jackson here.
I understand.
I like Mac Jones. Wouldn't you rather have Lamar Jackson?
I mean, but it's more than just getting Lamar Jackson. With Lamar Jackson comes, you got to pay him a bunch of money and you got to give up draft picks. It's not just as simple. So you got to figure out from there, is it really worth it in the long term?
It's overrated for certain teams to give up number ones for him. You want to know why? Because you're only giving up one player. You're getting Lamar Jackson. So right there, you tell yourself, Lamar Jackson is our first-round draft choice. Then if the other number one is for next year, if you win with Lamar Jackson, that pick isn't going to be one of the top picks in the draft. So to me, you know, the guy's a game changer. I mean, most teams don't need a quarterback. Some do. I mean, listen, Pags and myself, we both like Baker Mayfield to an extent. But Tampa would have been better off with the Lamar Jackson. They're the number team, the Washington Commanders. You mean to tell me they're going what with Sam Howell? Lamar Jackson's the guy next door. How can they not take Lamar Jackson? I mean, they're scared he's going to get injured.
Everyone gets injured. But let me tell you this. Me being a Lions fan and all these Lions groups, there was a big buzz about Lamar Jackson coming to Detroit. And would he be an upgrade over Jared Goff? Maybe. But we're pretty good with what we got right now. And why jumble up and switch it all up? And I kind of feel that's what some teams are doing. Like, he is a better option, yes. But is he going to Is getting this guy going to take us to the Super Bowl?
He's better than Goff. Do you make the move to the Lions? I probably don't, because I think Goff is good enough to maybe get you to the next place. He did take the Rams to a Super Bowl, let's not forget. And for what you have to pay Jackson and you have Goff there, I probably wouldn't do it if I were the Lions. But there's some teams, absolutely, I would do it without question. I mean, I find it hard to believe that they haven't, and what's Lamar Jackson's attitude going to be? Already he's asked to be traded. So he doesn't want to come back to the Ravens. And chances are he's going to have to, that they're not going to pay him his money. He's under franchise tag. No one's going to make an offer. So what's he going to do? Stay home for the season? His value is not going to go up. He doesn't report to the Ravens. What would you do if you advised Lamar Jackson?
It's funny because I was thinking about that earlier today. At the end of the day, it's all on Lamar Jackson has all the power. He can take the contract or not. I mean, but is he willing to? Does he have enough money in the bank to sit out? Is he willing to bet on himself enough to sit out? But at the end of the day, he could take the contract or not. Like, he has all the power. But like I said before, you can only take what someone offers you.
But they could trade Lamar Jackson, work out a deal. The Ravens will take the 2 number ones, not match it. And the new team doesn't have to give Lamar Jackson a new contract. They can make him prove himself over the year. Okay, 2, I'm not that sure he has all the power. Teams normally cave in, but in this case, I mean, but I understand what you said. Who's going to go back to the Ravens, too? It's like a tug of war.
Yeah, I'm not saying he has like the power in like getting more money or making people pay him more. He just has the power of signing the contract or not. That's his choice. If he's willing to sit out, then he can sit out.
So my thoughts is that Goff is likely the third best quarterback right now in the NFC. And I would say I would go behind Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott. There really isn't anybody else in the NFC as a quarterback. All the quarterbacks right now are in the AFC. So an NFC team right now could go ahead and get Lamar Jackson and become one of the top 4 teams in the league right now, because there's nobody else competing against them. That's why I say Jared Goff right now in our conference, he's probably the third best quarterback by a wide margin.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's just my thought process.
That's a statement. The way I'm not sure I necessarily agree with you. Say Goff has proved himself that he's better than Kirk Cousins, for example. That's not the body of work that's quite there to say that he's better than Kirk Cousins. You could say he's on that level, but I don't think you can really say he's better. And some of the comparisons, I don't know that fair. A lot of the young quarterbacks, how can you compare anyone to Justin Fields, for example? Goff to Justin Fields, because Justin Fields is a young quarterback who supposedly is going to get better, who's going to be.
So you can make it arguably, Goff could be the third best quarterback in the conference.
Mac thinks it's Daniel Jones.
Of course, but that's a homer. I don't know. When I think about the quarterbacks right now in the conference, Lamar Jackson would be a very big deal going to whatever team in the NFC. In the AFC, he is just it becomes all a 5 or a 6 quarterback race, because you got so many good quarterbacks. You could, when Justin Herbert and Lawrence are, vying for 5th and 6th best quarterback in the conference, it's a big deal.
And the next the draft that's coming up this year, the year Lamar Jackson was drafted, he was the 5th quarterback taken. And when you look at where all the other guys are, The first quarterback taken in that draft was Baker Mayfield, who's kind of has had some success. He's going to start for Tampa Bay. He's going to have a chance to save his career again. He's been so-so, Baker Mayfield. The next guy, Sam Darnold, he's going to the 49ers now. He's just hung around. He hasn't quite fulfilled his potential. Then you had Josh Allen, who's been great on the trend to Hall of Fame career. Josh Rosen, is he even in the league anymore? He was the fourth guy. And then you had Lamar Jackson. So it makes you think this year with the draft going on, with Stroud and then Bryce Young probably going 1-2, might a team who gets the fifth quarterback actually get the best quarterback or the second best quarterback in the draft? So maybe you can be patient, with one and get your right guy a little late on in the first round.
I mean, when was Tom Brady picked?
Oh, I don't like that. That's an aberration.
But I only say that to say.
And half a check on lotto tickets because someone won $100 billion. Come on, that's an aberration. Yeah, it happened 20 years ago. Look at all this. How many sixth-round draft choices are franchise quarterbacks? Give me a break. I mean, it happens one time. It's like I hear from Matt all the time about injuries and football, why we shouldn't have all these rules. He says, because you can slip in the shower and hurt yourself the same way. Well, I've been taking showers for decades on top of decades, and I haven't slipped in the shower and injured myself like that.
Well, that's good because we don't want you getting hurt that way. It might take a while for anybody to find you. So, but I think Lamar Jackson would be a really good addition to any NFC team. I don't think, I think he wants to get out of Baltimore because he sees the writing on the wall against the quarterbacks he has to go face against, and it's you take the path of least resistance. You were an MVP caliber quarterback at one point, and now you're having this debate because you have chosen not to have a agent. So you could blame a little bit about the fact that he doesn't have an agent as part of the problem. So I'm interested to see if that's if it's the agent that's the issue, the lack of the agent is the issue, or if it's mostly because, all right, they're afraid of the injury or whatever. Like I said, I was listening to somebody on the Pat McAfee show yesterday where they were talking about how it was ridiculous that Arthur Blank, who was going hardcore after a quarterback last year, and Deshaun Watson, who wasn't going to be able to play 12 games, and lost out to Cleveland because they went with the fully guaranteed contract, but yet is going to play this game about, I'm nervous about the injury prone of Lamar Jackson, which I think is ridiculous. I think that's completely ridiculous. They're just saying things now to try to diminish Lamar Jackson's value, and they're doing it through social media. So because he doesn't have an agent wouldn't stand for this, but because they're doing face-to-face conversations, they feel like they're able to get away with more, or they're withholding more and then doing it in social media.
I see. You have a point well taken. But these teams that want to win, they'll give in to get the quarterback they want. The Browns, they had to know all the baggage Deshaun Watson was bringing. They had to know all the criticism. Yet they also knew long-term, where we ever going to get a quarterback like Deshaun Watson? So they signed Deshaun Watson, and all the feedback has been negative, outside the football field. They knew what they'd have to go through. I don't think having an agent is the important thing here, that Lamar, his mother, is dealing with it. That's fine. They're saving the agent's fee on that if they want. They're playing hardball. They basically see Deshaun Watson got a guaranteed contract. Like I said, if I'm in charge of the Jets, I want Lamar Jackson. But the one red flag that bothers me about Lamar Jackson, I don't know what it bothers you guys. I believe him that he was injured and he doesn't want to get injured worse. I trust his word on that. I know he's a great competitor. But where was he when the Ravens were playing on the playoffs? Was he hanging out with the team? Was he on the sidelines? Was he encouraging his team those games? He was a no-show. That's what bothered me. You're the quarterback. You're the leader of that team. That means you're the leader even when you're not playing, because the guy, Tyler Huntley, that was replacing him, isn't on Lamar Jackson's level. He wasn't a threat to take Lamar Jackson's job. So they needed Lamar Jackson there encouraging players, knowing he's part of the team. So he kind of detached himself from the team. It was kind of with the LA Clippers we talked with K.Y. Leonard when he was out. Rather than sit on the bench with the players and encourage them, he was up in the suite, up there watching the game. I want my teammate with me. It means a lot to me. Even if he can't play emotionally, he's part of the team by him being there.
I don't know, just you mentioning Kawhi Leonard and the load management. Him sitting in Kawhi Leonard took more time off than any NBA player I could think of. And that's just the time we live in now. But that's NBA. Lamar Jackson, I believe that after the playoff game, it was a lot of the members of the media were upset with him not being there. But I believe when some of his teammates were asked about it, they really didn't mind. But maybe they were just saving face. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the hard part in being able to understand. Like, I feel that there was a little bit of both. You know, he may have been injured, but didn't want to play.
Let me go, Stefan. Let me give you an example, Tags. You have an elite quarterback now in Philadelphia. As far as I'm concerned, he's elite. You know, he still has to prove himself a little more, but he will. Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts had missed all those games at the end of the season, a number of them, would Jalen Hurts be there on the sidelines? Would he be encouraging his teammates? I think he would.
I agree. I think that he would as well. And I think that's part of the difference. That's why the question even came up in the first place on why is Lamar not there? Why is he really injured? Does he really, or is it more of a fact that he is not happy with what's going on right now in that organization and wants out? And it looks now like it's more like he wants out, that he doesn't want to be there.
He wanted his guaranteed money. He would have taken it from the Ravens, signed with them. He would have bought in. I honestly believe that. He wouldn't have just signed the contract and went at half speed. He would have went all out trying to get to a Super Bowl. But he didn't get his guaranteed money. And I think the relationship, I don't know how you feel about it, Craig, is too far gone now for Lamar Jackson to ever be a Raven again, unless the Ravens do an about face and give him the exact deal he wants.
All right. Well, in his tweet, I believe he had said that he injured his PCL, right? That was the injury, and he could have played, but he didn't want to play if he was not 100%, and that would have been unfair to his teammates. That kind of makes sense, you know.
I don't like to question how hurt a player is. It has to enter your mind, in all honesty, and as unfair as this seems. Maybe he was a little bit hurt, but the contract was on his mind and he didn't want to jeopardize the contract. You know, players and mindsets are different. Like when CC Sabathia was a free agent to be with the Milwaukee Brewers. It was the end of the year. He was pitching on short rest because his team, you know, the playoffs were at stake. And he was all in on the team, not in on his status as a free agent. But of course, his agents and other people would say, oh, CC, don't take a chance in injuring yourself. He didn't care. I don't know what's that Lamar Jackson's attitude. If push comes to shove, I'm going to believe Lamar Jackson. You say you're that injured, the doctor's reports. I believe you. I believe you. What I don't like about Lamar Jackson, you're still with the Ravens now if you lead. And when you were injured, you should have been there with the team. No reason why you can't come to practice when you're not rehabbing, encouraging your teammates.
I mean, I would think that if he played that game and won the game, it would rise his stock. So why wouldn't he take that chance?
Well,
for the same reason, getting hurt.
He could have been on the sideline with the team, encouraging the guys, helping Tyler Huntley in that game. Especially Tyler Huntley tried a quarterback sneak from the 1 yard line, and the ball got knocked out of his hand and returned all the way for a touchdown by the Bengals. What a fiasco. But that shows you the value of Lamar Jackson. Had he been a quarterback, they would have scored. You know, the Ravens would have beaten the Bengals. They would have beaten them in that game. And who knows, maybe they would have gone to the Super Bowl. And they may have lost to the Eagles in the Super Bowl, Pags. And the Eagles could have been Super Bowl champs, conceivably.
I think so, too. And we have Mac talking in like, oh, well, Jalen Hurts, who's been in the league for 3 years, not 2, and he is elite because he arguably could have won the MVP in the Super Bowl, but of course they're not going to give it to the losing team anymore because there's too much money coming from Disney to say that they're going to Disney World after winning the MVP in the Super Bowl.
But well, you're looking, well, Jalen Hurts was a second-round draft pick. I mean, examples like that are much better than the Tom Brady example, because I hear it all the time about Tom Brady. Oh, the 6th round. You could get lucky in the later round. That was a complete fluke on Tom Brady. You want to wait till late in the draft figuring, oh, use Tom Brady as a model. You're going to be losing year after year. You're going to be like the Detroit Lions, year after year losers, just waiting. Now the Lions are good now. They're good now, and they're trending. And I think they're a contender. What they have a what?
I said they're good on paper, but they haven't won anything.
Well, they would have been in the playoffs last year had they gotten a little help before the night game. But regardless, you know, they're trending in the right direction. The draft is going to be C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. That's going to be the talk. 1, 2. Is one of them going to fall? Is one of the other quarterbacks going to slip in ahead of Bryce Young, for example? Indianapolis goes number 4, so they're going to get a quarterback.
And Mac's saying 3 years is not a good sample. What are you talking about, Mac? What are you talking about? You think that Daniel Jones is elite and he's been in there for 4 years. In 3 years, he didn't start the first year. 2 years, he brought his team to the Super Bowl and was MVP caliber until he got hurt. So had he not gotten hurt, it may have been him that won the MVP and not Mahomes. So what are you talking about? I don't understand what you're saying, Mac, because you're talking just garbage because you're a Giants fan and that your team is going to stink again this year because your quarterback sucks. Now, let's just face it, your quarterback sucks. That right now the Lions, who have not won a playoff game since Nixon was in office, is going to be able to go ahead and outplay the Giants.
Yeah, I am. Go ahead, Craig.
No, he said Nixon. Actually, I messed up. It was George Bush last time. George Bush Sr.
The Lions can't even make peace with their own players when they retire. Sanders, Megatron, they don't even have relationships with the few Lion legends, and there are not many Lion legends I've been around, but the couple who they have, they don't even have relationships with. But with Dan Campbell, they're really on the right. They really have a good team here. They really have a good team finally, and and they got C.J. Gardner from the Eagles, who's going to roam around their secondary. That's a nice pickup. Very big pickup for the Lions.
Yeah, we're doing. I like the direction we're going in. After we got rid of Caldwell. After we got rid of him, we got the guy Patricia from New England. That was just the biggest mess ever. Like we tried to bring the New England way over to Detroit, and then he starts signing all the ex-New England players, and yeah, that was just terrible. But yeah, Dan Campbell, he has us going in a really good direction. But back to the Detroit Legends you were talking about. Obviously, we only got two. We got Barry Sanders and we got Calvin Johnson, and they both did leave the franchises with sour taste in their mouth. But I kind of feel like I don't have all the facts, but these guys were working their hearts out on losing teams. Maybe if these teams would won, they would feel differently. But the fact that they just keep this, and then I'm coming from a fan perspective. I can't really speak from their perspectives, but maybe they feel that the franchises could have done more.
I can't argue with that thought process. I mean, they were inept for so long that they needed to be able to, and listen, how is it that you only make it to the playoffs a couple of times? In the NFL, and it's full of parity, where you see all these teams be able to come up and come down, but yet be below the bar all the time, especially when you had Megatron. You had Scott Mitchell for a long time, who was a halfway decent quarterback, and then you had Megatron, and you had Barry Sanders. I mean, those guys were good enough. I just don't see how they couldn't put it together well enough.
I mean, no, we had because like I said, when the last year of Caldwell's coach, I mean, the last year he coached, we didn't make the playoffs. The year before that, we lost to Dallas. We had something good going on. Like we had Matt Stafford, Calvin Johnson had just retired, but we were okay. But we got rid of Caldwell and we got Matt Patricia. And
I don't like that term that Craig, getting rid of Caldwell. He does it. It sounds like Caldwell didn't do a good job. Caldwell actually did a good job on reflection. He went 9-7, and for a team like the Lions, that's awesome. And they let him go, and they got a lot worse. I mean, Jim Caldwell was a good one. He should have gotten another chance in the NFL. He had two coaching staffs. Indianapolis, they won the Super Bowl 1 year, so there was success there. And then he had success with the Lions. You could argue Caldwell had success in his two stops. He should have had additional stops, after that. In the interviews, the jobs, and should have gotten another head coaching position.
One more thing, talk about the parity of the league and how we at some point we should have been a lot better than what we should have. It was like a good 10-15 year stretch where we had nothing but top picks year after year after year after year after year after year after year, man. Yeah, the Ndamukong Suh. We had the list goes on. We had all kinds of top-notch players, but we just never been able to get it together. But I really trust in Dan Campbell, man. I really do.
The Lions got lucky last year's draft by getting Hutchinson at number 2. He should have gone number 1. But the Jacksonville Jaguars took Walker. They overthought things because of what they saw at the combine. They saw a player who could do ridiculously great athletic things in the combine. So rather than taking Hutchinson, who was going to be a sure thing, outstanding impact player, they went with a guy's athletic upside. That's why I hate the combines.
We don't need to get into that. As we're in the top of the hour here, I'd like to thank Craig for coming on. Craig, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me. I actually own a restaurant. It's called Craig's Kitchen. It's located in Vernon, Connecticut. You can follow me on Instagram at Chef Craig 860, and you can follow me on Facebook, just Craig Wright or at Craig's Kitchen.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, talking some boxing and MMA and some Detroit Lions, which we never get enough of over here. Obviously, we don't even talk about the Detroit Lions much at all because Jack likes to talk all about his Jets. He kind of monopolizes most of the time, as you can tell. It's hard to get a word in edgewise when Jack is doing some speaking. So, but anyways, I'd like to.
News.
Well, Rodgers ain't coming either, so the Jets are going to be back with Zach Wilson. That dog is going to be sleeping with more moms. Anyways, everybody have a great day. Enjoy opening day, and we will see you tomorrow where Mac will be back to do the Friday show. Everybody have a great day, and thanks again.